Fossil fuel emerging during the Industrial Revolution. One of the world's best sources of energy is fossil fuel. Dictionary.com defines fossil fuel as any combustional organic material such as oil, coal, or natural gas derived from the remains of former life. So this energy has been around for millions of years. During the Industrial Revolution, we started to tap into fossil fuels, which made the Industrial Revolution so big. There was such an abundant amount of fossil fuel, and it was so cheap and easy to access. With fossil fuel being so new, we could not tell the side effects and what it might do to our environment. Now that we know that fossil fuel does and how it affects our environment, we have to look into alternate sources of energy. The Industrial Revolution started in 1760 and ended in 1840. In the video The Industrial Revolution, produced by History.com, the Industrial Revolution took place when the factories and assembly lines first made their debut. For these factories or assembly lines to work, they would have to be next to a river or stream so they could create energy. The high demand for factories to be built next to rivers and steam made the industry of fossil fuel so much more significant. One of the biggest factories that made the Industrial Revolution so successful was the use of fossil fuel. One reason why fossil fuel was such a big factor in the Industrial Revolution was because fossil fuels were able to burn hotter and cleaner than just regular wood. Instead of factories having to be located next to a river or stream, they could get energy from the factory to run. This new, cleaner, and more powerful energy made it possible for factories to be located anywhere. Factories then started to be built all across the United States and all around the world. The factories started to become important during World War I and World War II. As you can tell from the table, you see the amount of coal really start to grow around the year 1915. This is because World War I started in 1914. During World War I, the factories transitioned from making clothes and other items into making guns and military vehicles, or whatever the military was in need of. The high demand for these items caused a demand for more factories to be built and to be produced. During World War II, between 1939 and 1945, it was very similar, but as you can see, other fossil fuels such as oil and natural gas have started to get transitioned more. These wars were really just the kick to the start of the use of fossil fuels. One of the biggest things that made fossil fuels such a big item for factories to use as a source of energy was the excess amount they had of it. According to a video called Black Gold, produced by History.com, on January 10, 1901, two brothers named the Hamlin brothers discovered one of the biggest oil reserves in Spindletop, Texas. The oil well was able to produce 80,000 barrels of oil a day, which made the United States the biggest producer of crude oil. As you can tell from Table 2, once the well was discovered in 1901, the amount of crude oil skyrocketed. With all this excess oil, the price of oil was very cheap, which made it a perfect source of energy for factories to use. When we first discovered fossil fuel, we had no idea what the side effects could be from it. As time goes on, we now have a better understanding of what it can do to our environment. As it's stated in the book Causes, Impacts, and Solutions to Global Warming by Abraham Dinser, Oscar Copeland, and Feather Kalugu, the burning of natural gases is causing global warming. Global warming, or the greenhouse effect, is the production of carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. The Earth warming up is causing the glaciers and ice caps to melt. Many animals who live in the Arctic and colder weather are in trouble because the warmer weather is making it harder for them to hunt because the ice caps are breaking, which is splitting them up from their food sources. In addition to this, the heat is making it harder for animals to move around because they have to adapt to colder weather. So they have a thick coat and blubber to keep them insulated. But now that it's getting warmer, they are getting heat exhaustion from having to go farther to hunt because the ice caps are breaking apart. The warmer weather is not just affecting the cold areas, it is also causing lakes and smaller bodies of water to dry up, which is making some places go into droughts. Even though the burning of fossil fuel is very good and is a good source of energy, it is slowly destroying our environment and causing the earth to heat up. Fossil fuel is such a great source of energy, but with all great things, they must come to an end. One of the downsides to fossil fuels is that it is a non-renewable energy. In the article called "When Will the Fossil Fuel Reserve Be Diminished?" by Shamir Sherry and Eric Toplin, it gives us an equation that lets us figure out when we will probably run out of fossil fuels by estimating the current use of fossil fuels and estimating how much we have left on Earth. The model they use is a slightly modified version of the Douglas class model. The model uses the current rate of fossil fuel use and puts it into a compounded continuously formula. With the use of the class model, it estimates that we will have coal till at least 2112. The model estimates that coal will be the only fossil fuel left after the year 2042. If this formula is correct, then we must almost completely used up all of the fossil fuels. Some could argue that if it wasn't for the Industrial Revolution, we would probably not be in trouble about running out of fossil fuels because we would not have been in such a big need to power the factories and cities. We need to be smart with our use of our fossil fuels before we use them all up, because we could run out of most of our fossil fuels in the next 25 years if the class formula is correct. The big question nowadays is, if we do run out of fossil fuels, what else will we use to run our factories and cities? The best source of energy that I found is from an article called "Retrofit Equipment for Reducing the Consumption of Fossil Fuels by a Power Plant Using Solar Insolation." The article describes one of the best alternatives to fossil fuels, which is the use of a solar-powered boiler that heats up water to create steam. The hot steam created is then used to power machines just like how fossil fuels would. You can see in the diagram and how it is laid out how the solar energy is used to power the burners to create steam, which is then condensed and used to power machines in factories. This was invented by Lucien Y. Broccoli, Uranie Fisher, and Shane Sugarman. It was patented in 1998. As of September 3, 2015, they are trying to get more power from each system before they show it and use them in factories. More factories already have a good way of receiving power, and most of them will not want to pay more money for this to be installed to receive less power. If they find a way to extract more power from this solar-powered steam engine, then this could be a huge factor in reducing the use of fossil fuels. Fossil fuel is one of the most powerful sources of energy, and that was really discovered during the Industrial Revolution. During the Industrial Revolution, it was the best source of energy that could have been used to fuel the factories and cities because there was so much of it and it was so cheap. But after using a good amount of our fossil fuels and realizing how it is hurting our environment, it might be smart to consider using a natural resource to power our cities and our factories.